Hello there, welcome. I'm now going to talk about Peter Pan and Wendy, which is the new Disney Plus film, which has not had the best reception. To be nice about it, it's not really been received well by the critics have liked it, but the audience's scores and what to me has been pretty bad. I don't think it's the greatest reception. I think it's been one of those films that's been like, I don't really get this one. It's a bit of a shame in some ways, but other ways I get it entirely. What the film has is really is a it's a case of it did not deliver the film that people wanted from it. People wanted a Peter Pan movie, and this is what happens in every Peter Pan movie. It seems to be in the last 30, 40 years, where they say we're going to do it right this time. We're going to do it, and then you see the film, and it's like, yeah, you didn't do it right. The only one that I think is any good, even if it got some mixed reception, was Peter Pan. PG Hogan made in the early 2000s. It is a really good film. It's very strong. It's got its flaws, but I really enjoyed that one. And I think it is, I mean, it has its issues, but I think it is a genuine attempt to do Peter Pan. The rest have tried to be clever in different ways and have not been clever at all. I mean, this one got hammered by a lot of people online. But then again, if you actually look at some of the other versions we've had recently, it's like, this could have been a lot worse. Right, we've had Hook in the early 90s. Some people like this film. I don't get it. I just don't get it. As Peter Pan grows up, and the idea of the tragedy of Peter Pan is he never grows up. And the film itself is lifeless and, fairly flaccid as a drama, and it's got all these supposed street kids as the Lost Boys, and they were, I'm going to say right now, when we saw them in the 90s, they were cringe. They were like, what are you doing, Spielberg? What's going on? And Robin Williams was miscast as Peter Pan. You had Tinkerbell was miscast as Julia Roberts. Dustin Hoffman was fine as Hook, but it's very studio bound. There's a lot of really cringy stuff in it. And it's like, I think people who saw it as a kid like it more because they've got nostalgia towards it. But at the time, it was hated not just by critics, but by the general audience because it was seen as fairly soulless. It was a film that Spielberg made and basically was, oh, I messed up, and then went and made Jurassic Park and Schindler's List. So the bounce back from this film, from thinking he made a total disaster, was huge. But it's like a film where even the director knows that, oh, I messed up that one. That one was no. So that one is if people say that's a good, I just question their tastes. It's just like, this is not a good film. But compared to Pan, which was the film made a few years ago by I think it's Joe Wright. It was made by Warner Brothers. It was a prequel. This one's a prequel. How did Peter Pan become Peter Pan? So he started as Peter Pan in the real world and going to the Never Land and being friends with Captain Hook early on as he fit against Blackbeard, played by Hugh Jackman. This one's awful. There's going to be a what the hell is this for that one, this one as well. But having the nerve to rewatch it, it's painful to sit through this one. This one is one of the worst films I've ever seen. This one is like just awful. This film, Peter Pan and Wendy, is flawed. One of the things a lot of these films don't get is the nature of Peter Pan, and the idea is it should be it's kind of a tragedy within having a childish wonder of it. It should be a childish wonder, but there's also underlying tragedy that Peter Pan can't grow up. He can't get beyond his ways. And you either go for the whimsy like Spielberg did with Hook. I don't know what they would try to do with Pan, but this one goes too much for the drama of poor Peter Pan and ignores the joy of Peter Pan. And that's a real problem for film. Even though there's a lot of stuff I like about it, it's a thing, it sinks the film constantly. Like everything's shot dark here. Now, the director of this is David Lowery, who did The Green Knight, which was terrific. He's a good director. But I think he took what he did there and put to Peter Pan, and it didn't work as well. Basically, he was trying to take what was in the Green Knight was a story of the Arthurian legends, and he took it and messed around with the rest of the cast a little bit. But it worked there because you just felt it was only a small section inside. The rest was where it was historically. It was almost like these people come over as immigrants, and it was a small part of that family. It worked. And this one, it leaves some questions because this is pretty much a Victorian era story made at the height of British power when they really weren't that racially conscious. It was not a society who understood how to deal with race in logical terms, is the best way to put it. And it comes to haunt the film later on. Because there's some stuff it does which is fine, but there's other stuff you can go, no, that wouldn't work. Not from when this story was written, and not from how it was written, the society it came from. This would not work. So there's the big stumbling block here is what they want to show with Peter Pan and what the society is clashing, and it's not been worked out. It's been worked out to, we have been progressive and how wonderful we are, but it doesn't work because it goes against the narrative of the story in lots of ways. There's still things that it does work though, but I'll get to that. But it doesn't define its own society in a way that actually feels clear. It's like it's a bit confused about what society is progressing, but it's shown. I mean, this is not the disaster of Pinocchio, the Pinocchio that the Zemeckis did, which was, oh god, that was horrible. That was just unspeakably bad. But this one does have issues. The main issue is Peter Pan himself. The kid that cast as Peter Pan, they did go like racially to not make him white and all the rest of it. And Peter Pan is basically a white kid with way too much energy. And this kid did not have the energy for it. And again, because of where it was written, you do feel like this is kind of important for who this character is. He is a kid of this Victorian culture. He's like the energy from this Victorian culture that will never leave, but can never mature. It's like that's his tragedy. And if you change the race of it, it doesn't work. It's just not what the makeup of this character is. The one thing they do that I actually think is fine is when they go to Never Never Land, the Lost Boys can be lost girls or can be of various races. Because kids, when they're kids, if you even know kids at school or look after kids, they don't tend to notice different cultures much. I mean, we people from India when I was at school, and it was fine. No kid, you just played with them. It's fine. I don't think that's. I think the idea of Never Never Land being an imaginative place where you kind of dream to get there, and it came from all over the world. That's fine. The Lost Boys, it has been pointed out, the Lost Boys are children who are unrooted in their society, which is typically more boys than girls, and that is true. But because in this one, the way they do it, it feels like it's much more like these are kids who are unrooted. They come from societies that are dysfunctional, and they're probably on the streets, and they become lost and end up in Neverland. And it feels like it's okay for what that was. Like I can understand that's an interpretation of Peter Pan. There'll be other ones in the future. Okay, that's fine. That I don't have any problem with that one. Because I just felt like, okay, that's a good take on it. It's different from what was originally planned, but this is one adaptation of many, so it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, that's interesting. But Peter Pan himself should have been an annoying white kid because it just was that energy of Peter Pan is the energy of the British Empire at its peak of arrogance and being sure of itself just before it was about to get splattered by the 20th century. And it's just that's missing from the film. That's really missing, and it's a shame because And it's like you find that Peter Pan came from the Britain and get lost and things like that. But it was like he would not have been in the top level of British culture the way he seems to be educated towards from how he speaks and things. It just from when it just feels wrong for what the character was and where he's supposed to have come from. It just feels completely off. You know, if you wanted to do an updated Peter Pan, you could have done it. If it was updating as a culture, it's like Britain now. It could work fine because it would be a British culture that maybe isn't as confident, but it could be this sprite of what it could be again, and you can make it work if you had an actor with charisma, which this kid does not have. This kid just looks awkward as Peter Pan. He doesn't have charisma. He doesn't have anything really. He's the most boring character in the film, which really hurts the film. And it's just a bit of a mess there, I'm afraid. And it's like Peter Pan's a hard character to cast. A lot of time it's like he's fine for what he is. That's these other adaptations. But here, I mean, that was the other thing went against Hook as well. It's like, oh, he was this British boy and becomes an American Robin Williams. No, he wasn't. It was. I hated that when Robin Williams played the character as well. I just thought, no, Peter Pan's not American, and he's not this guy who's annoying in this film. It just was like it's the same thing. It's like you're trying to modernize something that is defined by not being able to change, and you try to change it, and it's like, no, you're not getting it. So I think basically the film actually stuck to who Peter Pan was and had the cultures change around him. You'd have had a more interesting thing that probably would have appealed to a lot of people. But here it doesn't, because they just haven't cast it right, and it just every time you see him, it just takes you out the film because it's like this is wrong. This has not been thought through to what it needs for this story to work. Because the dynamic, the Green Knight, they cast a good actor. He may not have been white, but he was a good actor. He knew what he was doing, and the whole idea was his family were the immigrants from like Crusades and things like that, and it was off something like that, and it worked fine. But in this one, it just doesn't work fine because in the Green Knight, the character is defined as someone who's not sure of himself, who's an outcast, and it worked. But he didn't look like anyone else. It just worked for what that was. And this one, he's Peter Pan's ultimate insider, even though he's an outsider. He's an outsider to Captain Hook, but he's an insider to have the mastery of the world that he's in. He's the master of that world. And here the kid does not look like the master of any world. There's also a problem with Wendy and the other kids. They're played fine, but they're not well defined. They just feel like there's some scenes missing that would have defined them more. And they're in a landscape that is shot darkly, and there doesn't seem much joy. It just looks cold and not a place you want to go there as a child. And then within it, it does have a dark, like old fairy story feel to it. But again, because Peter Pan's not a character who's dynamic, to light all that up, they feel off as well. And that's because they're trying to make Wendy like a Disney princess, like, oh, she's independent and stuff and all the rest of it. But it's like they're doing that by note at times. And other times it's fine, but it's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for me, it kind of is feeling like it needed a bit more work. It needed a little some more depth played. But again, because of the casting problem of Peter Pan, the dynamic that should have been pushing the film forward isn't there. And Peter Pan always seems weak and it doesn't really work. Jude Law's fun as Captain Hook, but with the story of Captain Hook pretty much makes Pan look like the villain for most of the film. And you kind of like Hook more than you like Peter Pan, which is a bit of a problem. Again, it skews the story off. So the themes are coming forward through the film, and they kind of dominate the film rather than the actual narrative. And when you're getting the scenes where they've caught Wendy and are going to execute her, you're not that worried because it's like Hook's a big softy, and even when he does the thing, doesn't matter. There's no threat there, and there's also the thing where it's already been brought up a lot of times, like Neverland, like Hook was originally a lost boy, and then he grew up. He went away to try and grow up, and he comes back, which is an interesting story. But he can't find a way we used to live with Peter Pan. Which, if the Neverland was huge and he made the excuse, he forgot as he got older the details. But because Neverland is actually fairly small, when you see it, it's like he should be able to find that in 5 minutes, even if he never was friends with Pan. It just is like one of those things. It's like so this is a film that's trying to be like a Guillermo del Toro film versus Peter Pan in a weird way with all the darkness and all the themes coming through, but it's taking a narrative that needs like momentum and charm, and it's not giving that charm. So the film feels like it's only halfway there because if you wanted darkness, the face story darkness, you needed some charm in there as well, which Del Toro does in his films, but here it's missing. It feels dour, and mainly you're on Hook's side, which is just off. So the film is just this weird thing. It's like there's bits of it I really like, the atmosphere I really like, and even some of the Lost Boy stuff of the different nations and dreams all coming here. That's all good. The atmosphere is good, but because it gets in the way of this actual story, and the missing center of the film is a problem. It's also the ending's terrible. The ending basically has the Lost Boys come back to London to live with Wendy and her parents, and they're all from different regions of the world. That when Britain was pretty racist then. That's just stupid. That's just really like no, that's not what happened there. That goes beyond your suspension of disbelief into that's stupid. For this time, that would not happen. And basically, the film doesn't know how to write like British adults, like at all. Like in like London, they don't get the father and the mother are kind of just these vague characters that don't quite work, and it's just a bit of a mess there. And it's kind of embarrassing to watch that sequence. It's like, oh god, what the hell? What are you doing? So it's a film with lots of nice things, but lots of when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong. And it's like this film needed more time development, and they need to discuss what they want to do with it in detail and actually see like these are flaws with your idea of doing it, and actually examine it. Is this what we really want from this story? Because it's not what people are expecting from this story. So I think it's just a damaged mess of a film, but it does have charm. I still like this a lot more than I like Hook or that Pan movie from years ago. It's nowhere near as good as the Peter Pan from 2000s, but you know, it's not all bad. And to be honest, Pan and Hook are pretty much all bad. So this is at least is an improvement there. This is a few things going for it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I'll be back soon with some more videos. Right, bye for now. I'm going to turn this off, of course.